Just as one candle lights another and can light thousands of other candles, so can one heart illuminate another heart and can illuminate thousands of other hearts. That's from Leo Tolstoy. And welcome to the First Existentialist Congregational Atlanta Celebration of Life. My name is Jan Lister, and I will be your facilitator today, and our musician today is Jean Hunter. Hey, Jean. You're amazing, Jean Hunter. And our congregational song, which
is in our new songbook addendum, Eyes on the Prize. It's under E, A, B, C, D, E. Eyes on the Prize. And you all have heard this song, I'm sure. It's a traditional, it's been done for, I don't know, centuries, and there are variations in the melody. So just sing out, be committed to whatever melody you choose to sing. You all got it? Stand up, willing and able, want to, or however that goes. Bound in jail, had no money to go to bed. Your eyes on the prize.
We are a philosophically based spiritual community dedicated to human liberation and founded on existentialist and feminist principles. By existentialist principles, we mean that we are what we do in the world, and we accept responsibility for our choices and our actions. By feminist principles, we mean that we accept and actively support freedom and justice for every person. We support diversity as a source of strength, and we actively include everyone. We make our spiritual home in the old stone church, which was hand-built 100 years ago by the African American Antioch East Baptist Church. We honor their labors of love and powerful history of this special place. We acknowledge our spiritual home stands on a land forcibly taken from the Muscogee Creek people, and we support justice and equality for all Indigenous people. At this time, I'd like to remind you to please put your electronic devices on silent, which you right now. I always forget to do this. Feel free to wander around if you want to, but please do so quietly and respectfully. Our speaker today is Reverend Kimble Sorrells, a longtime friend of First E, whose topic is Recalculating Route, reflecting on our spiritual journeys. Reverend Sorrells told me that his topic is about reflecting on our spiritual journeys, in particular about the times of struggle and setbacks. We've all had struggles and setbacks in our lives. Sometimes it seems to me that every day is a struggle and setbacks are just routine. Yet I keep going, I keep getting up and dusting myself off and starting all over again. And that's how I know I'm alive. Good. Yes.
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to hearing what Reverend Sorrells has to say. I have the feeling that it will be something that makes me glad I'm alive and makes me want to keep going. And I have a couple quotes for you. When something bad happens, you have three choices. You can either let it define you, let it destroy you, or you can let it strengthen you. And that's from Theodore Seuss Geisel, better known as Dr. Seuss. Setbacks are bumps in the road. They are not the end of the road. It's from Bob Greene. The beautiful thing about setbacks is they introduce us to our strengths, from Robin S. Sharma. And from Charles Darwin, it's not the strongest species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the most responsive to change. Before we recognize our newcomers today, I'd like to mention a change that we'll be implementing from here on. The reopening committee met last week to talk about how we've been a little bit slack on adhering to our own guidelines that we set up before we came back to life here in the sanctuary. And we understand that it's hard to hear others, especially with their masks on, but we do feel that it's important to maintain that practice, at least for the time being. If you're standing up here on the stage, you notice I'm not wearing a mask. It's a little bit different because you're a good distance away from the closest person. So we decided that facilitators and speakers can make their own decisions about whether or not they want to wear a mask. But if you're on the floor, we're asking you to remain masked at all times. And for that reason, we've set up a microphone in the front of the congregation. Draw your attention to the back of it. If you choose to speak. So hopefully that will reduce any hearing problems that you may have, and we'll still be staying safe. So now, I'd like to recognize any newcomers that might be with us today, or you've been here once or twice before, we haven't seen you in a while. Anybody here? Peter, I was just going to say.
I was walking by last Sunday and decided to come in and stay, and this is my son-in-law.
Hi.
Welcome. Talked to him about what I heard and saw, and he decided to come today.
Great. I'm so happy you decided to come back. That makes us all feel good when somebody comes and then comes back the next week. So that's always a great thing. And what's your name?
Steve.
Steve? Do you live here in Atlanta or are you visiting?
No, we live over sort of near the lakefront.
Yeah, oh, okay. Well, hopefully you'll be back too, Steve. Thanks for coming. Okay. Oh, is there somebody else? Am I missing somebody? Oh!
Hi, this is Shelby.
Can you come up to the microphone so we can...
Hold on, we lost
There's
our
a
mask.
connection card. Just to mention the connection card, it's
Oh,
there.
yeah. I've got that right here.
I'm Shelby. Many of you already know me. This is Evie, who's playing with the microwave. Yeah. We're
Oh, okay.
partner and baby.
Great. Thank you for coming. Did you say Evie? I love it. Evie.
EV.
With V. Hey, Evie. If you're new, I'd like to draw your attention. So I can't find what I did with my... Thank you. That. To our connection card. Thank you very much. Now look at inside the pamphlet, you will see this, and you can fill it out, tell us more about yourself, or if you want more detail about us, more information about us, you can let us know. You can opt into our weekly email blast from Robert or a monthly newsletter. And once completed, you just tear it off and drop it in the collection plate, and we'll pass that around a little bit later. Okay, now it's time for us to celebrate anyone who is present who may be celebrating a milestone, such as a birthday or an anniversary, some special occasion. Nobody today? Oh, that's too bad. I'd love to sing happy birthday or whatever.
We can still sing it. No.
Okay, this has a birthday
not.
today. Okay, we'll just go to our next congregational song then. How about that?
The next song is in the new songbook addendum, Tree of Life, under T, Tree of Life by Donnie Zasloff and Eric Lindbergh, who wrote this song after the Pittsburgh Tree of Life Synagogue bombing in 2017 or 2018. They wrote this song for healing. And when I connected with them to find out if they would give us permission to put their song in our new songbook, they said they would be honored. So I'm going to play first the verse so everybody can we did it one other time, and then we'll start singing, okay?
Absolutely beautiful, beautiful. Well, we only have Evie here today, no other children, so I'm not gonna go into any detail about our youth programming, except to say that for the time being, we're asking for reservations to be made a week ahead of time if you do desire childcare. If anybody has any community announcements, please bring them up to me and I will read them before the end of the service. And at this time, I'd like to ask our fellowship minister, Marcia Michener, to come up to give us some of her words of wisdom.
Good morning, everybody. Great to see you here. I specifically wore this t-shirt.
Can you speak into the microphone, please, Marcia?
I specifically wore this t-shirt this morning. It is WWRBGD. That's what would Ruth Gator Ginsburg do? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I never thought that I would live in a time when, I thought I lived in a time when I had to fight for things that I wanted to see happen in this country, and to gain certain liberties and freedoms and feelings of equality and justice, and I think that some of that has happened. Now, I live in a time when the things that we fought for are in jeopardy of being taken away. So, I encourage you to do everything in your power to look at every candidate that is running for an office and to be aware of what they support, and if it falls in line with what you believe, then please support them with money, stand on a street corner, write postcards, do whatever you can. This coming election is going to be critical to the future of this country. And I watched a video last night on one of the news programs. It was a minister doing a hellfire and brimstone message saying that if you are a Democrat, get out of my congregation. You are a demon, ranting on and on. Well, I'm not going to tell you what party you should support. I'm going to ask you to support the people who are out there who will vote for justice and equality and for everybody, and to do whatever you can, because if we don't get those type of representatives in our Congress, and that means on the state level. I read that, like, for example, Oklahoma has just passed a law that says once the Supreme Court makes a decision about Roe Wade, that they will ban all abortions from the point of insemination. Some states have already crafted laws that will ban contraceptives, that will ban the use of being able to buy a morning after pill. Also, the Secretary General, I think it was, of the UN, saying what a major impact this will have globally, not just here in the United States, when this type of ban takes effect. If you don't want an abortion, don't get one. So, but don't, I could continue. I get so emotional and involved with this. I know I'm speaking to the choir. If you haven't voted, make sure that Tuesday is your last day to vote. So make sure that you're out there voting. Do everything you can to get everybody that you know to vote, and to see if we can't get some semblance of normalcy, responsibility back into what's going on in our country. At the same time, the war is still going on in Ukraine. We can't forget about what is happening in other parts of the world and the atrocities that are happening and the people that are dying every day. And so, please, keep yourself aware of what's going on, and do whatever you can in whatever way that you feel is right for you, to participate in the process and to try to make this a more compassionate and kind world. Thank you.
Wow, talk about major setbacks. I heard somewhere that one state, I believe it was Texas, was trying to tell their citizens that they can't go to another state to have an abortion, which is like basically keeping your own citizens prisoner. It's, and then, I have been in such a state of despair over all of this, and I'm trying to get past it. I'm really trying to work through it, and I'm hoping you can help us today, Kimble. And then I look at that beautiful bouquet of flowers, and it just makes me feel good. And I just noticed that heart up in the window there, that giant heart. How long has that been here?
Why?
Years. And I've never noticed it before. Isn't that funny? But that just, that's me. I just noticed this morning that I have pockets in this dress. I had no idea. And that's great, because who doesn't love pockets? Anyway, I'm going to take that heart into my heart and just, keep hoping for the best and keep doing what we can to make the best of this world. It's now time for our silent meditation. Switching things up. Usually I do the joys and sorrows first, but I decided to go strictly by the book today. This is one of my favorite parts, because it allows me to kind of be alone with myself for a few minutes hopefully to appreciate the good things in my life and just to soak in the vibes that I get from just being in this place. At this time, you can light candles. We have them on either side of the sanctuary, or just sit and reflect. And feel free to get up, but if you do, please try to be cognizant of your fellow congregationist's silent time, and I will ding the bell when it's over. I know this may be a little unorthodox, but if you guys don't mind, I'd like to do one more minute of silence and prayer for the 10 people who lost their lives in Buffalo last week. Destroy you, or it can make you so freaking mad that you work even harder to become the winner that you know you are. If life knocks you down, roll over and look at the stars. I don't know who does it from. And now it's time for another song.
This is another one in our new songbook addendum. One Planet is Turning. The Native American Indian Arapaho Nation song, One Plant Under One.
Please rise in body and spirit.
I don't know if you all remember this. We'll just go to the first verse to get back in the groove.
Setbacks are inevitable. Misery is a choice. From Stephen Covey. Do not let temporary setbacks become permanent excuses. From Angela Duckworth. And these are kind of fun. I always like to throw in a kind of fun one. When one door closes, another opens. Or you can open a closed door. That's how doors work. I'm always making a comeback, but nobody ever tells me where I've been. It's from Billie Holiday. I saw this on a button, and it seems appropriate because we all know that we're very likely going to see more setbacks in our lives, but I like this one. My worst decision is yet to come. We are a generous and giving congregation. Winston Churchill said, we make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. And from the amazing Anne Frank, no one has ever become poor by giving. If I could get a couple of people to come up and pass the offering plate around, and our musician is going to play some very special music for us, right?
This is a song I wrote for my friend, Rainbow Moon Woman. Some of you know it, have heard me play it. Breathe it to the fire. And please do jump in if you want to sing along on that.
Who today is Reverend Kimble Sorrells. Reverend Sorrells is an ordained minister in the United Church of Christ with a ministry in contemplative practices focused on equipping us with peace and resolve to be justice makers in the world. They are also a registered yoga teacher and draw on this and other spiritual traditions to inform our ministry. As a bivocational minister, Reverend Sorrells also works with Lifeline Animal Project as a community programs manager, guiding caseworkers as they assist pet owners in times of challenge. And, that means a lot to me, having taken in a dog that was this close to death. And, it has been a challenge, and doing that work is just, thank you, it's amazing. Reverend Sorrells has experience in a variety of ministry settings. They have worked in LGBTQ advocacy for many years, including as staff for Reconciling Ministries Network and the Atlanta Pride Committee. They currently serve on the Mayor's LGBTQ Advisory Board and work primarily in advocacy with the transgender community. Please welcome Reverend Kimble Sorrells.
I'm switching to this mic. Are y'all able to hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. Well, it's good to be in person for a change instead of seeing all of those little tiny squares on my screen. So I thought I'd share some reflections. These are my personal reflections. This is, how I feel about the world and life and the spiritual journey. And maybe it resonates with you, maybe some of it doesn't. And that's okay. And so I wanted to reflect a little bit about that internally, interpersonally, and then a little bit kind of more on the macro level as well. Because I do think they're related. So I guess I think I'm not the only one in this, but I use my phone GPS for just about everywhere I go. Sometimes I'll even use it when I'm going somewhere I know where I'm going, but I still use it to see if there's some weird Atlanta traffic phenomenon that I need to get around, because usually there is. It's so convenient. You just connect it to the car radio, and then I don't even have to look at the map. Siri will tell me where to go. And of course it comes those times when I'm not really paying attention, and the good song comes on, whatever it is, and I miss the turn. Recalculating route, Siri says to me. It's almost as if she's disappointed. And at this point, I'm also kind of disappointed and a little bit annoyed at this possible delay. I look at my map, hoping that it'll do the thing where just reach it up this way and then back around, and not the worst thing, right, which is having to make a U-turn. There is nothing that annoys me more than having to backtrack and turn around and waste time. Does this sound familiar with you? Yeah, okay. As you see, I'm a little bit of a planner. My spouse might say I'm a control freak. I don't know if she's still watching. But I would like all of my ducks in a row. I have a plan for the day, the week, maybe my life, I don't know. Or at least I thought I did. You see, growing up and even probably in the early adulthood, I imagined that my life would follow this steady linear climb, right? Towards finding love and a family, a climb towards a career or success, whatever that is. And of course, my spiritual life would be the same way, a nice steady climb to God or the divine or enlightenment, whatever words you might want to use. Well, spoiler alert, it turns out I was wrong. My life, as well as my spiritual journey, has been anything but linear. More often, it's as if the divine voice whispers in my ear, recalculating route. Just about the time that I think I know where I'm going. And imagine I'm probably not alone in this experiences. Our journeys go in winding and unexpected directions, sometimes turning that U-turn around, backtracking altogether. Sometimes, as I said, sometimes this is an interpersonal thing. It's from our own internal forces. Maybe we're just not paying attention. Or maybe we think we're so sure we know where we're going that we miss the turn. So much like driving, sometimes I miss where I'm going because I'm not being mindful. Either I'm not paying attention, or I'm just so sure that I know the right way that I ignore all the signs around me. Some of you know that I grew up in a very conservative evangelical religious tradition and attempted the ex-gay conversion world. And I clung to this strict faith tradition for years because I was certain that I knew where my life was headed. I was certain of all of the answers. Yet as time went by, everything in me and around me was telling me to turn around. Turn around from this religion that I clung so tightly to, that I followed rigidly, or it was going to kill me. And I remember as I was coming to terms with this, I was in college and I heard in my religion class a teaching from the Buddha. And the story says that the Buddha is approached by a sitar player who was discouraged with his practice and asked him for instructions. What happens when you tune your instrument too tightly? The Buddha asked. The strings break. What happens when you tune it too loosely? No sound comes out, the magician said. The strings that produce a tuneful sound is not too tight and not too loose. That, the Buddha said, is how to practice. Not too tight and not too loose. And when I heard this, I had a sort of a revelation. This spirituality, this religion that I had been clinging to, I had clinged to so tightly, too certain. It was too harsh, too acidic. I was headed down a path to destruction because I was so certain. Recalculating that route meant losing a lot of people and changing a lot of things in my life, although in the end it was the right way. And still there are times when I find myself too loose as well. We all do. Perhaps these are the times when we're not so mindful. We aren't paying attention. We're not paying attention to our path or our guide, be that, for me, whatever my spiritual tradition is, a sense of the divine or God. For you, it might be your conscious mind, your humanitarian values, or just your gut. Sometimes we aren't paying attention and we miss the turn. Sometimes following our path means turning up and recalibrating, recentering. And that's okay. In my yoga teacher training, I learned that in Hinduism and in other Eastern traditions, there is a teaching that spiritual growth isn't about becoming someone new, but rather about remembering who you have always been, a spark of the divine. And while they didn't teach me this in my conservative church growing up, I have since come to learn that that's also a thought in Christian tradition, as well as other traditions. I like the way that Richard Rohr puts it. Your true self is a little tiny flame of this universal reality. It is that life itself, consciousness itself, being itself, light and fire itself, God's very self. He goes on to explain that the practice of contemplation is to help us uncover and reconnect to that reality. So spiritual growth in many traditions and the spiritual path is not about becoming something better, but about returning to your true fullest self. So to use the metaphor of our driving, it's simply getting back on track. After all, being lost doesn't mean you never had a place to begin with, but rather that we've simply drifted from alignment. Our spiritual journeys
The battery might have died.
We will switch. I'm recalculating. This was a lesson. I didn't plan that. Our spiritual journeys may drift, and that's okay. But our practice of becoming who we fully are is a part of our journey, has always been. For me, like I said, I call that being a child of God in my tradition, or a reflection of the divine. You may call it wholeness, being your authentic self, coming into enlightenment, living into your humanitarian values. See, as much as I wanted my spiritual life to be this linear climb, it has meandered quite a bit. In part because of these internal reasons, and yet there are also those external factors that we've all sort of alluded to this morning. Sometimes it's that something external to ourselves comes along and knocks us off this clear, pre-planned course. You see, much like driving, it's not always that I miss the turn. Sometimes there's something else that comes. Perhaps a road is closed or blocked. An unexpected detour shows up, a mishap like a flat tire or an engine trouble. Time to recalculate. This isn't going to go as planned. Perhaps more often in life than we'd like, something happens that changes the trajectory of our journey. We lose a job, or miss a promotion or an opportunity. We lose love, or lose a loved one. Something happens that hits us hard. At best, it can be disorienting. At other times, it's devastating. How do we find our way forward when it feels like the whole world has changed? How do we continue on a path rather than to get lost in despair? I think perhaps more than ever in those times is when we have to lean into those spiritual practices. You see, that internal forces are related. This is all related. We do so in the same way that we do when our internal, interpersonal measures knock us off our course. We come back to center. We remember who we are. We use our spiritual practices as a sort of compass to help us reorient and find a new way. Connecting into whatever it is that's your source. I love that image of a force field around this space. Perhaps it's that, or energy. If I'm being honest, life since a certain election in around 2016 has been a little bit more of a roller coaster than a journey. There have been more unprecedented events than I would have really liked to experience at this time. And of course, just recently, as we have heard, we've been dealt more and more blocks in the road. After what has been months of hearing about anti-trans legislation sweeping through various state legislatures, including Georgia, just recently we saw a leaked SCOTUS document that suggests that Roe v. Wade will likely be overturned. And more than that, the language that is in this document, if you haven't read it, it's worth reading. The language in this document suggests that many of the rights that we also have could be under attack. So this is going to open up the door for attacks on marriage equality, other LGBT concerns as well. So regardless of what views on abortion you may have, there's a tremendous risk at play for a dangerous entanglement of church and state. There's a risk for a lot of infringement on body autonomy and civil liberties. And then in the midst of this, we see now that we're having this unprecedented shortage of infant formula. So we could be facing just many, many children going hungry, facing malnutrition. And still, in the midst of this, we continue to see mass shootings at epidemic levels in this country. And of course, among those mass shootings, just last week, we recently witnessed the murders in Buffalo that was a targeted attack on black people fueled by white supremacy. It has been a disorienting few weeks, years. And at times, I feel not just lost on the path, but sometimes a bit hopeless. How do we find our way? Now more than ever, we as conscious people need to look to our tools and continue on the path. we turn to our tools to get our bearings. On our spiritual journeys, on our life journeys, and these times that disorient us, we need to turn to our sources of orientation, whatever that is for you. Whether it's in the sense of the divine, consciousness, compassion, energy, nature, the force field around this building. These are the times to pause, to reconnect with our source of orientation, our source of strength. For me, this isn't any different, like I said, than when I get off track a little bit internally, interpersonally, when I'm just lacking mindfulness. I need to go to meditation and remember who I am. A spark of the divine. The path of spiritual growth, as I think of it, is simply to return and recognize that aspect of myself. Or think of it as returning to wholeness, mindful awareness, or something else. This process is also what I use when things are hard and the world feels disorienting. Because when I know who I am, when I am grounded and centered in my sacred being, I am able to ride the waves of these storms or find a way forward in this journey of life. It is my source of orientation, of strength, of comfort. It's my resilience. Liz Edmond wrote or shared a quote, and it resonates with me, it may or may not with you. She says, faith isn't the idea that you'll be safe. It is trust in the idea that some part of you, the truth in you, will survive no matter what death-dealing violence is directed at you. Maybe this resonates, maybe it doesn't. For me, this has been a source of orientation, knowing that those who would seek to oppress me cannot steal who I am. They cannot take my sacred worth. They may try, and they may win some. They may win some political battles, but they cannot take who I am. They cannot take my being. They cannot take my joy. Still more, reconnecting to my source of orientation isn't just a source of comfort or strength. It also means that I can't let myself off the hook. There is work that I need to be doing in this world. If who I am is rooted in the divine, my belief, then I also must continue to shed the places where I am complacent in the face of oppression or complacent in my privilege.
Yeah.
If I believe that all people are also of inherent worth and dignity, then I must engage with them in their liberation. So practicing my spiritual practices in this way is an ongoing process, for one thing, to engage with my white privilege, and to continue to do the work of dismantling white supremacy. That's one example. There are many other systems of oppression, whether that's gender and sexuality, ableism, ageism, classism, all of these things. And we all have different aspects of ourselves where we might be unknowingly participating in those systems of oppression. So the systems of oppression that we participate in, even if unintentionally, are the antithesis of that divinity that I find my center in. Or, if that doesn't make sense for you, the antithesis of wholeness. They are the antithesis of humanitarian values. So when we engage in our spiritual practices, by nature of the practice, it leads us towards not just transforming myself, but transforming the world. Shannon Watts, who is the founder of Moms Demand Action, if you're not familiar with that, it's an organization that is fighting for the end of the gun violence epidemic in this country. Just after the Buffalo shooting, she tweeted that several people had reached out to her in the last 24 hours and said, I feel hopeless, or I don't know how you keep doing this work. She responded saying this, while as a full-time volunteer for a decade, I understand this sentiment. I ask you in all sincerity, what is the other fucking option? I might write that down on a card and put it on my altar that we cannot sit by idly while those who are most marginalized are the victims of mass shootings, yes, but also daily gun violence. And this is what really struck me. They want us to quit, she said, of the right-wing extremists. They want this to be the new normal. They want us to quit. They want us to feel discouraged. They want us to give up. I don't know what or if she has a spiritual practice, but I believe that she names that reality that we must continue on this path of transformation. Yes, practice self-care and rest and share the load with each other, but don't give in to the hopelessness and accept that nothing can change. I'm bringing to mind, if you're not familiar with geese, they fly in a bee. And the reason that they do this is to help have their strength through the journey. But the ones that are at the front are taking on the most of the headwind. And when they tire, they fall back, and the other geese come forward. It's okay to get tired. It's okay to feel discouraged. But we have to lean into each other in a community and continue on this path for transformation. You see, the world needs people like us, conscious people, to continue on this journey. So when we get discouraged, when we get to that place where we want to give up, we have to reorient ourselves to whatever it is that is your source of guide. Whether that is a spiritual practice, whether that is remembering the times that we have made change. Sometimes just remembering, yes, we did do that. Whatever it is that grounds you and centers you, connect to that. Come inside this force field of this building, if that makes sense to you. Connect to that. Recalculate. The road has changed. Recalculate. But then continue. Continue the work. Because there is still so much work to do on this path and this journey we call life. Thank you.
Yeah, that helped a lot. I'd actually like to have that speech, written down so I could read it every once in a while to kind of bring me back to life. I think that so much of what you said is true about, we are out there. We can fight. I think that this community right here at First D is living proof of that. It's just going to take us all. No community announcements. Before we have closing remarks, we'll have our closing congregational song. Please rise in the body and spirit.